God damn it. All right, I don't even know if that's being picked up, but I don't know what the fuck is suddenly wrong with this shit now. It's not going to the right damn place. Whatever. What the
No,
what the fuck?
is the
Welcome.
theme playing because I can't hear it?
I turned it off because it's not coming through correctly for some fucking reason. I don't fucking know. But what I do know is this is another action-packed, exciting hour of the Smoky Mountain Re-Watch-Along Project. This is podcasting the way it used to be and the way you like it. This show is a production of the Something Else Podcasting Network and is episode number 059 of Smoky Mountain Wrestling for March 13th, 1993, Hate March 1st, 1993, at the Catton's Chapel Elementary School in Sevierville, Tennessee. My name is Arya, and welcome to the show. Now, I do have to announce that somehow, amazingly, shockingly, I still have a co host because while I was thinking I was fixing my little issues here with our computer, which didn't end up fixing, I sent Trey a video. And it's a video we've spoken about on this show before. In fact, not only did they play it originally back in April, it also made the best of episode. Somehow this was
Oh
considered,
God.
yeah, yeah. Best,
Oh,
best of 1992. Tim Horner singing Shameless.
oh, that's high on the list of meanest things anyone has ever done to me.
I gotta ask, how long did you make it into that video? Because the video is like 2 minutes long, and I don't think you made it 2 minutes.
Now, here's the thing, though. Like that song actually slaps. Yeah, I grew up in Arkansas in the '90s, so naturally I'm a little bit of an aficionado of '90s country, which is actually, believe it or not, gonna cause me to raise some issues, some other music related issues with Tim Horner on this show.
Really?
Yeah.
I would think of all the issues, especially since we haven't let him sing in almost a year, a musical issue would not be what comes up here.
Look, this podcast is just gonna become my grievances against Tim Horner.
We could rename it the Anti Tim Horner Podcast.
Trey
Uh,
addresses his enemies. Tim Horner.
Tim Horner can fuck himself.
That's my entire enemies list. Just Tim Horner.
Wow. And I gotta say, like before I roped you into doing this wrestling podcast, did you really think much either way about young Tim Horner?
I had absolutely no opinion about Tim Horner. He was like an underneath guy and sort of the ladder, like the transition from Crockett to Turner period.
So
That's all.
so basically, thanks to me, you now have an enemy.
Yeah, appreciate that. It's really given my life some direction.
Anytime, I figured you'd appreciate it, ultimately. You
Yeah.
know, I could have had you on the TNA show and we could have discussed Stone Cold Jeff Jarrett. Um, by the way, that is coming up Wednesday, the debut of Total Nonstop Aria. Me and our new co-host Cindy talking about TNA from the weekly pay-per-view days, June 19th, 2002, and on through the future.
That actually sounds like a lot of fun.
So far, it is. We may have to drag you on here and get you in for the show.
Yeah, if I can find the hours in the week.
There you go. Uh, so for some weird, strange, odd, unknown reason, this may be one of those things where people listening to this are like, "Hey, I heard the theme song perfectly. I don't know what the hell you're complaining about." For some reason, the audio isn't working properly. It's not coming in through my headset and that way like it normally does. It's playing on my computer instead. And what makes it weird is like I would blame the headset. Like, maybe it's not plugged in or whatever. Except I hear Trey perfectly through here. So it's not
Yeah,
the headset.
and it's weird. It's weird because like I could hear the audio that you were playing on the other show, but you couldn't hear it right. And then when you did whatever you did and brought us back, like then I couldn't hear it either. So you
Oh,
made it worse.
Watch, it'll be fixed by restarting my computer, which I'm not going to do now. But what I'm saying is, we're not going to have any audio on this show. Will it make it better? Will it make it worse? Who
That's a
knows?
shame. That's a shame.
But not shameless.
Not was it something about this was shameless.
Well, so the intro, which I'm not going to play, with Coddle and Dutch. This week, the Rock and Roll Express are wrestling. Tracy's wrestling. We're going to find out the rules of the Russian roulette match. And we're going to have a main event that I'm going to mock mercilessly. Miguel Perez versus Crash the Terminator.
Oh my God. I could not believe that these two people turned up in the international match
Yes, the
from
international match.
from Puerto Rico.
Which, by the way, is part of the United States.
It is.
The international. And they
The
met.
Dutch's whiteboards this week. The one read "Cars I Have Loved" and the other one read "Women I Have Wrecked."
And we find out that Horner's opponent this week in the TV title match, because Tim Horner is our Beat the Champ TV champion, which means that as long as he's champion, he's going to be
Uh,
wrestling on this show every single week.
it's not even the worst thing that's going to happen today.
Well, his opponent this week is Dixie Dy-no-mite. And
Dixie fucking Dynamite versus Tim Horner. I was in hell.
By the way, Dirty White Boy and Mr. Ron Wright are going to be on Down and Dirty with Dutch as well. And
That's all the announcers talked about during this match. Ron Wright getting out of the wheelchair last week. This match was boring, and then Horner won with an O'Connor roll, and I am so baffled. Tim Horner's entrance music here is "The Thunder Rolls" by Garth
Thunder
Brooks. Are
rolls
you're
and
familiar with
lightning
the song?
strikes.
You're familiar with
I,
the song, Mister?
I've been listening to it for years. Yes, I'm a little.
Okay, it's a classic track of its time. It's a great song. There's actually an amazing cover by Seether, the rock band, the metal band, whatever. Seether. I love one of the things that I collect is covers that cross genres. But anyway, this song, "The Thunder Rolls," is about a wife murdering her unfaithful husband. Why is this babyface in a East Tennessee wrestling story coming out to a song about a wife murdering her unfaithful husband?
And the funny thing is, if you believe gossip, he was fucking Pam Lawson in the bank, in the office that he made Cornette pay for while his pregnant wife was at home.
Yeah, yeah. If you didn't do your homework last week and listen to the Cornette burial of Tim Horner, we will accept a late assignment.
I mean, it's been 8 years. If you haven't listened to it by now, what the hell's wrong with you?
It's like it's like the uh it's like the Simon Gotch burying Enzo Amore video on YouTube.
You just have to keep watching it, you know.
Yeah. And it'll go
Um,
away, and then you'll forget about it, and it'll come around again.
Now, I will say, and by the way, because we never actually said what the opening match was. I mean, we strongly implied it. But our opening match, Beat the Champ TV champion Tim Horner versus Dixie Dy-no-mite. I noted that 6 or 7 months ago, when the roster was a lot thinner than it is now, we noted that Dixie seemed to be in the opening match of every TV taping, because every new TV taping would start with a Dixie Dy-no-mite match. And
As did this one.
yes, well, he hasn't been on TV much lately. Now that we've had a more of a deeper roster, but that doesn't explain why Horner's still all over it. But anyway, I I
Horner
think
Horner Horner was in the office.
I think Dixie is a perfectly fine opening match wrestler. I think it's again, it's the South, so taking the gimmick into account, I think he is a pretty good opening match wrestler, and he does a great job of getting the crowd psyched up. They had a new graphic for the Beat the Champ match that they were so excited for. They rolled it out twice. It was a rolling, colorful graphic across the bottom of the screen, which is funny because that was the only time they used a rolling, colorful graphic. The rest of the show was the normal graphics.
I do not have anything in the world against Scott Armstrong, but fuck Dixie Dy-no-mite.
I note this was a technically proficient match, two baby faces exchanging holds. Neither man would dream of cheating, and as I type that, Dixie starts punching Horner, which, it's not cheating, but a punch to the face is certainly not becoming of a baby face. And Horner wins with the
Tim,
natural bridge.
there's nothing becoming about Tim Horner as a babyface.
He he is a before we see the last of Tim Horner, he does come out as a masked Oriental heel next year.
Oh, oh my God. Oh my
Yeah,
God.
yeah. That is still to come. That is, I think, after his feud with the Mummy. And why did
Can we
what?
talk about Jeff Daniels and Lynn Fields against the Rock and Roll Express? I don't want to talk about Tim Horner or Dixie Dy-no-mite anymore.
Sure, Len Fields and not that Jeff Daniels versus the Rock and Roll Express, who came to the ring with a member of the Ku Klux Klan.
Not Dick Murdoch,
No. Um,
allegedly.
so I noted to you a few days ago that I said something as soon as I saw something on Smoky Mountain. I made a note, and then Cornette was listening to me because he said the exact same thing. It's like they bring out a guy in a white sheet, and whether or not it was intentional, it literally looked like a Klans person.
It did.
And
And didn't Cornette even make a crack about that?
he did, yeah. Um, Dutch Dutch said he needs to look into this right now, so he left the broadcast booth. And I thought that he was going to go to the ring and confront the sheet, but he didn't. He just goes to the back because apparently that's how you look into it when the guy's right in front of your face. I note that they led the Wizard to the wrong corner as he's actually standing in the corner with Fields and Daniels while the Rock and Rolls are having their match. And
Like it
I,
matters.
I don't know if the man under the sheet could actually see or not because he stands perfectly still the entire match.
He just stood there motionless while the Rock and Roll wrestled a squash match.
I know here that Corny goes to the broadcast table and says that it's David Duke, and I'm not sure it was a good thing
Yeah,
or a bad
yes.
thing that him and I are on the same wavelength there. And Robert Gibson pins not that Jeff Daniels with a double drop kick. Then
You
it's
want to
time.
hear,
Hmm?
you want to hear some weird indirect trailer?
Sure.
Okay, so in my my previous life, I was an aspiring historian. My mentor as a historian was a professor that I had when I was an undergraduate, and that professor had for like a semester when he was an undergraduate at LSU, his roommate was David Duke.
Like that David Duke?
That
Or
David Duke.
wow.
Yeah, it's apparently he's unsurprisingly perhaps he's kind of a douchebag.
Really? I
That's what I
I
hear.
I'm shocked and gobsmacked that David Duke was a bit of a douchebag.
The reveal was a lot better than David Duke. The
Yes.
reveal was actually fucking fantastic, and it's all because of Jim Cornette.
And Cornette, hey, it's his territory, so if someone's gonna freak out, it was him. Um, Cor-
This
Cor-
was so good. Okay, so did we? Okay, the Rock and Roll Express beat Jeff Daniels and Lynn Fields in a squash match with a double drop kick. Then, okay, I'm just gonna run off and recap this. We come back to the announce table, and it's Cornette and the Heavenly Bodies and the Rock and Roll Express, and Ricky prods Cornette to go and mess with the ghost, and Cornette goes and pokes it, and then he gets brave and he starts to slap at it, and kick at it. And then he takes the sheet off, and it's Arn Anderson, and Cornette falls over and screams, and it was amazing.
Arn fucking Anderson was under the sheet. The crowd goes fucking nut for him, and they eventually run the heels off. I did note, and you mentioned that he kicked the guy in the sheet. It was a very Orange Cassidy like kick too.
So, and one of the best part of this besides Cornette is Bobby. Okay, Bobby is shocked, but then he's just excited to see his best friend Arn Anderson, because it has been very established in the lore that Bobby Eaton and Arn Anderson were the best of friends. So Bobby goes straight up to Arn and shakes his hand, and then Arn decks him, and Arn and the Rock and Roll Clean House and the Heavenly Bodies, and Arn explained himself. Arn was so great, and he fits in here so perfectly, and I'm sad that he's not going to be around like the whole time.
Nope. He is already almost on his way out the door. Um,
Yeah.
he says everyone is in shock, and yeah, if I didn't know that it was going to be Arn Anderson, I honestly, I don't say I would have pissed my pants, but like that, like this is a week apparently of big reveals on this podcasting program, because we had the reveal of Brody on World Class, and now we're getting Arn Anderson here. It's like people you just did not see appearing, and it's, you know, he says a few months ago he was injured. He may have been on the shelf for good, but he's healthy now. He establishes that he and the Rock and Roll Express do not like each other, but he demanded the same kind of fight as his partner as they gave him as his opponent. When he got hurt, Eaton ran, and he needs to learn a lesson in loyalty. And I noted that despite not having a match, Arn was sweating way more than Ricky Morton was.
It's been under a sheet in a probably unair conditioned Tennessee elementary school gym. Not even a high school gym. This was the Caton's Chapel Elementary School.
I read that they got 700 people in there, which I mean, I wasn't doing the head counting, but I mean, that's a decent attendance for them at this point.
Good for them.
Yep. Um. So yeah, Arn Anderson is the big third partner, and you know they're gonna do the three-way match with three men on a team: Rock and Roll and Arn, the Stud Stable, and the Heavenly Bodies. Coming up at the
Did you mention? Did you mention the point that Arn is mad at Bobby because Bobby didn't come see him when he was injured?
I didn't specifically say that, but I hinted around it at it.
Yeah, and he's upset about that, and he's also upset that Bobby is under Cornette's thumb again.
Yep. Yep. So then we go to Down and Dirty with Dutch, but before we get that, we get a replay of last week when Dirty White Boy beat Tracy after Mr. Unright got out of his wheelchair. And then we go to White Boy and Mr. Right coming out in New York Yankees gear, which
Oh my god,
I say this
so
as
good.
I say this as a northerner. That got more heat with me than anything else they did. I fucking hate the Yankees. Um, but this was tremendous. Mr. Wright says he did not get out of his chair, and it breaks his heart so bad that he got bronchitis again, because of what everyone's saying about him. And there's just something so funny I noted, because Dirty White Boy, because they've now moved to New York City, and Dirty White Boy is making fun of the way that Southern people talk, and yeah, it's just as ridiculous as it sounds. Dirty White Boy making fun of the way other people from the South sound.
Ron Wright flat out denies what we just saw video evidence of, which is so funny to me because these days the people who do that in the South are the good guys and they're like senators and stuff.
Well, the funny thing is, he says he blacked out and he doesn't remember what happened. And Dutch, of course, Dutch tells us that his contact lens fell out, so he didn't see what happened either. And it's such great heel stuff. And I had mentioned,
Go ahead.
I had mentioned a few weeks ago that when Dutch turned tweener, because he never really turned babyface, that he started introducing Down and Dirty with Dutch as saying, "I'm Dutch Mantel, and unfortunately, you're not." But this week, he's back to "I'm Dutch Mantel, and you're not." So they are back, just putting Stud Stable and Dutch in that heel side of things. You know, that's where they really were the whole time.
Yeah, I was actually kind of wondering what the deal was with that. Like
Yeah.
if the stud stable were supposed to be heels or baby faces.
Well, when the feud started, it was them and the Heavenly Bodies, and it was very much, you know, a tweener type situation here, because you couldn't have two hardcore heel teams. But now the more the Rock and Roll have been in it, it's been more keeping the Stud Stable as heels, and Dutch as part of that. By the way, later on in the show,
Hmm.
I am going to try to play a little bit of audio because there's something coming up that I really want to play because I'm just that awful of a person. Um, but
I shudder to think.
by the way, the other thing that we need to note is Mr. Ron Wright pulled out his Tennessee chain match chain. And
Oh
what
my
a,
God. So he had a gimmick that was in a plastic grocery bag, and I got excited. I was hoping it was the chisel, but it was the Tennessee chain match chain.
what a coinky dink that he would just happen to have it with him now. And he's passing it down to White Boy, who challenges Tracy to a chain match at the Bluegrass Brawl.
Does the chisel ever come back?
I don't believe so. I'm sorry.
That's such a turd. Ron Wright is a Southern wrestling legend, a Tennessee wrestling legend, and he's always in the '70s. He had this fucking gimmick that they would just carve each other up with, and it was a chisel.
Gotta love Mr. Ron Wright. And I gotta say, it's like I like Robert Fuller. I say like I didn't appreciate him until I watched this old Smoky Mountain stuff. I honestly didn't even know who Ron Wright was until I watched Smoky Mountain Wrestling. And
Okay, there is not a lot of Ron Wright like in his prime because there wasn't fucking videotape yet. There is one clip from Knoxville TV in like 1972 where he's in the TV studio talking about a match he had with Lou Thez in Chilhowie Park in Knoxville, and it's amazing. So like, go search. I don't know. Go to YouTube and search Ron Wright Tennessee wrestling whatever 1972 I think.
see, I thought you were gonna mention the promo from like '88 or '89, where him and Gordon Soley, I think it is, and he's got the Nazi flag and all this shit.
Oh jeez.
It's I feel like I'm like you're the last person I need to be telling this to, but it's the South.
Yeah. If you search the video clip I'm talking about is called Ron Wright at his best. It's from Knoxville in 1973.
Nice. I'll have to check that out here. Um, Tracy Smothers versus Larry Santo. We do want to send best wishes to the family of Larry Santo, who in real life passed away last Sunday, June 2nd.
Oh,
Uh,
really?
yeah, yep. This match was all about Tracy, and he wins with the jawjacker. Dutch tells you not to replicate this move at home, or your dad might wear out the broomstick on you.
No,
Good
I don't
advice.
think I could if I wanted to.
You don't think you could have done the jawjacker, the top rope reverse elbow?
I, I did some like trampoline wrestling when I was a teenager. Anytime that I tried to jump up in the air, it ended badly.
Which says something since you're on a trampoline.
Yeah, I always have to be leery of my old nemesis gravity rearing its ugly head.
So I was trying to keep an innocent mind during this next segment, but Tracy's in the ring with a bunch of kids and some teenage girls who have all bought him a new Confederate flag. And because I'm fairly certain even the oldest of these girls is no older than like 15 or 16, I was doing my damnedest to not make any jokes about Tracy with rats here, but you know, yeah. But he thanks the fans. He reiterates the South will rise again. And I note that he doesn't technically agree to the chain match. He just says that he has a chain match with the Dirty White. And
I hate the storyline, but I love Dirty White Boy and Tracy Smothers as a wrestling match, so take the
I
good with the bad.
yeah, you take the good, you take the bad, you take them both, and there you have the facts of fucking life. I'm not a fan of the angle. I'm not a fan of the Confederate flag in general. I will say that Tracy does a fucking amazing job with it, and White Boy and Mr. Ron Wright are doing amazing jobs with this.
Yeah.
Um,
Tracy Smothers is amazing. It did we I make it a policy. I do not blame the wrestler for shitty creative.
I don't know. Can I really blame Corny though for Tracy coming out with a Confederate flag?
You can't because it's fucking Tennessee in 1993, and I get he for what he was trying to do, it made sense to do, and I respect that as a wrestling nerd, even if not in every other respect.
Plus, I'm 99% sure when him and Steve Armstrong were the wild-eyed Southern boys that, or Scott Armstrong, who was it, Steve or Scott? I think it was Steve. But when they were the
I think it was
wild-eyed Southern,
Steve. Yeah,
yeah, when they were the wild-eyed Southern boys, I'm fairly certain they came out with Confederate CW, and
I
that.
think so.
But Tracy Smothers is like he's just such a lovable baby face, and I still say that unlike Dixie Dy-no-mite, Tracy would still be this over without, the Confederate
Yeah.
flag because he's just a lovable baby face. And, you know,
Yeah, and Tracy Smothers, by like all accounts that I've ever come across, was very highly regarded by his peers.
now, you were talking earlier about Thunder rolls for Horner. Suddenly, banjo music begins playing, and I was more offended by this than anything else. We get like this horrible banjo music to plug the Bluegrass Brawl, where we're
Oh,
gonna with a triple main event: Sullivan versus Primetime Brian Lee, where Night Stalker and Tim Horner are handcuffed in the corners. Dirty White Boy versus Tracy in a chain match, and the three-team main event. They run down ticket prices, which it was like $8 for ringside seats, but for $15 you get the Golden Circle ticket, which gets you Domino's Pizza, and you get to meet, among other people, Tim Horner. That doesn't seem like the incentive that they imply it is.
whatever you do, um, do not let the AEW haters of 2024 hear that they are building a triple main event, or they will lose their shit.
People
But
really need fucking lives.
most importantly, we got to watch the Bluegrass Ball Brawl.
I'm gonna check, but I'm fairly certain that it's like with most other big shows that they're just gonna air the matches on TV anyway. So,
Hmm.
so I'm not gonna commit to it until I double check, but I'm fairly certain you know, we're getting the matches on TV. But from here, we go to a tape from New Orleans, which is quote unquote recently, with Kevin Sullivan versus Chris Adams, because yes, Chris Adams has to be on every show we do here.
Yeah.
And it was commentated by Chris Cruz, of all people, and someone. And I was trying to find where this was from, but not even the always reliable cage match ever lists anything between Kevin Sullivan and Chris Adams.
Yeah, I could not figure out where this was. It wasn't anything I thought was it global, but I don't know. I didn't catch it. They said New Orleans, so
I,
I
I
have no
thought
idea.
Global stuck to Dallas, but
Yeah, that's why because I didn't realize that they said New
Ollie.
Orleans.
So Sullivan hits Adams in the eye with a chair, and Adams, who has teased being blind before, is teasing being blind again. and the referee was falling over himself trying to hold Sullivan back. And because even in a tape of a match that doesn't happen in Smoky Mountain, Kevin Sullivan gets disqualified. I'm
Eh.
I'm pretty damn sure Kevin Sullivan has never won a match on this program. Uh,
Okay, I was accidentally looking ahead and I saw the results for next week's show, and
yeah.
this is a spoiler. It's a minor spoiler. Can you guess? You will never guess in a million years who Kevin Sullivan is going to lose to by disqualification next week.
Is it Wing Kanemaru?
It is Wing Kanemaru.
Next week is the famous Kevin Sullivan Wing Kanemaru match.
I did not
Oh,
know that this was a thing. I'm very excited
oh,
now.
oh my God! This is a match that I thought happened like 3 months ago, and I was sad that when I saw it was happening later. This is one of the craziest moments in Smoky Mountain Wrestling history next week. Because again,
Oh,
I want to reiterate, these shows are not being held in giant, city funded arenas. It is in an elementary school gym. And
yeah.
there are a lot of school age children in the crowd. And I'm doing this warning because I'm a little I'm a little surprised that they ever were allowed to go back to Sevierville. Just because next week's show, if you remember the original primetime Brian Lee angle, and how graphic that was, this one I think is even more graphic.
I'm psyched. I didn't know that this was a thing. Also, that goes on the list of holy shit, that match actually happened.
Kevin
Win
Sullivan
Kanemaru,
versus King Kanemaru.
Win Kanemaru versus Kevin Sullivan on Smoky Mountain TV.
I was getting that a lot when Marty Lundy was on Mid South, a few months ago. It's like he's having all these matches that, for the life of me, I never would have known he had, except here he is as a jobber on Mid South. Like he was wrestling Junkyard Dog at one point, and he had like a bunch of other matches that, like, 5 years later, it's a fucking bit of a dream match. And it's like here he is as a jobber getting squashed in 2 minutes on Mid South TV.
Have we gotten Shawn Michaels doing jobs on Mid South TV yet?
Nope, that is still to come, and his world class isn't until 85.
Oh.
So yeah, every time I ever saw Jose Lothario on world class, I always thought, well, Sean must be around the corner, but no, he's not. He's still got a while to go.
Yeah, I think Jose worked he worked a lot of the Houston shows with the Mid South crew, and that's probably how we got Sean in to do jobs.
Okay, so we're gonna go to the Bullet Bob Armstrong promo, and I'm gonna they're talking about the Russian roulette match, and essentially it's spin the wheel, make the deal, just without the wheel. They're just rolling a single die. And they run down the 6 matches that it could be. Prince of Darkness, which is a blindfold match, a stretcher match, a 2-on-1 handicap match, a match where the ring is surrounded by fire, a Singapore spike match, and then if it rolls on number 6, then Primetime Brownlee picks whatever match he wants. Now, I looked ahead to see what the winning match was, because they're only doing it once, allegedly, March 21st in Knoxville.
It better
And
be fire. How can it not be fire?
it's not.
That's
It's a Singapore spike match.
See, I would have bought a ticket solely on the possibility that there might be fire.
Yeah. And I've mentioned this before, and Corny, like, I know obviously this is 30 years ago, so I mean, what, we're giving him advice to retroactively book here, but he really needs to watch himself with not so much blatant bait and switch, but leading the audience on. We've seen it happen a couple times already when they had
Yeah.
the dream match month in November, and they're like, oh, you can pick the main events of every match in November, and every single match ended in some sort of bullshit DQ schmoz finish. In fact, the one match that won didn't even do the match. It was a 6-man tag with Bullet Bob on one side and Cornette on the other side. And they were like, oh, well, Bullet Bob is just not going to wrestle, so it's going to be somebody else. And then it ended up being a tag match because they did some angle where I think they blinded Ricky Morton or some shit. And it's like it was like it definitely felt like you're teasing the audience. And I mentioned a few weeks ago before you started, they did this when Bobby Eaton was joining the Heavenly Bodies, and they were saying that any two of the three Heavenly Bodies could wrestle when they promote the Heavenly Bodies. And so it's like you're leading your audience to believe that, hey, if I go to this show, it may be the reunion of the Midnight Express. But because you don't actually say that and you set yourself up that, hey, we just told you it could be two of the three, and it's Tom and Stan or Tom and Bobby, which are fine tag teams. But when you set something up like that, you make people think that it's going to be Stan and Bobby. And if a single person bought tickets thinking it's going to be Stan and Bobby and they get screwed, they're not going to be happy. And the same thing here, where you are building this crazy psycho match with a ring surrounded by fire, knowing that you're not going to give it to them.
To be fair, it is a terrible idea to use fire in a wrestling match. Because here's the thing, folks. Fire don't know how to work.
Oh, no. And I'm not saying they should have done it, but they also shouldn't have said it. If you weren't going to do a ring surrounded by fire match, don't say it, because I'd want to see the ring surrounded by fire match.
I I, des- I I desperately wanted to see the ring surrounded by fire after this.
yeah, like put in, I don't know, a fucking cage match. Because, like, yeah, it's still a little bit of a step down to get a Singapore Spike match. It's at least not, you know, a crazy drop in gimmicks here. But yeah,
Yeah.
so March 21st in Knoxville. And by the way, Singapore Spike, do you remember the San Francisco 49er match in WCW where they had the gardening glove and the
Oh,
picture of Scott Hall?
uh,
It's essentially that, only I hopefully without all the funny gimmicks in the boxes. But it's four
at least
boxes and one of them have the
at,
spike in it.
at least this isn't for the world title.
Yes. Because, we do, I guess we do have an NWA world champion. It's Barry Windham, but that the days of them allowing the world champion to be booked out are long over.
Actually,
Uh,
just watched yesterday. Watched Barry Windham win the NWA World Title.
so I always said that match really sucked, him versus Muda. What did you think?
Uh, it was fine. It was kind of unnecessary. Just felt like they wrestled a long time, and it's the NWA title in 1993. So who the fuck cares?
And we just had that long run of Chono, which sounds better than it was. Um, but
Did he like? So he and Rick Rude had like the great match in the G1 final that year. That was the tournament final for the NWA title. And then I think like they did the rematch at Halloween Havoc, and it was the shits.
yep.
And then did we get then Chono lost the title versus title match to Muda at the Dome. So
But 4 days before that, or 5 or 6 days before that, I don't remember the exact date, they wrestled at Starcade, and that match sucked.
Muda and Chono.
Yeah,
I don't know if I've ever seen Starcade '92.
it's it's got some very high points, but the low points are really low.
Well,
Uh,
maybe we'll get to it on that other project that we discussed recently.
oh yeah, like I'll at least definitely get to it. But anyway, Kevin Sullivan storms in with the Night Stalker and demands that Bullet Bob pays his bill to the psychiatrist and pays it on time. Um, Bob said that he may not need to pay after Sunday, implying that primetime Brian Lee is gonna beat the holy living fuck out of Kevin Sullivan. Which the funny thing is, they're promoting that while at the same time saying that Sullivan's gonna wrestle primetime Brian Lee at the Bluegrass Brawl at the beginning of April. And
Huh.
then in a show full of randomness at times,
Victor Quinones shows Kevin Sullivan is such an international menace that Victor Quinones is here to address it.
Victor Quinones comes in and cuts a promo about Kevin Sullivan before pitching it to the international match.
Oh my God, I just put together that that's why Wing Kenamura is here.
Yeah, yeah,
He's
yeah.
with Quinones, Victor Quinones.
Why couldn't Wing have been in the international match? At least we would have had somebody not from America. So it's Crash the Terminator, better known as Hugh Morris, or Bill DeMott,
General Rection.
Hugh G. Rection, versus Miguel Perez from Puerto Rico in the international match. Perez, of course, would be better known as the hairy member of Los Boricuas in the WWF.
So
And he,
it was Misfits in Action against Los Boricuas here.
oh God.
I'm sorry, I loved the Misfits in Action when I was like 12.
Sadly, Sergeant AWOL and Jesus Castillo did not make a run in this match.
That's unfortunate. But and Sergeant AWOL would have been so good in Smoky Mountain.
How about Major Guns?
Uh, she would have been popular.
She could have given Tammy a run for her money
Oh, Winter Chris and Tammy coming
soon, actually.
soon.
Yeah, because I think Candido's going to be doing dark matches like in the next month.
Yeah,
So mhm,
he works ECW a little bit in like the spring.
yeah,
Was he working both?
I don't think so. They know he's wrestling for Coraluzzo right now in New Jersey.
Yeah.
And that's where Cornette, because Candido was trying to get into Smoky Mountain, and Cornette said that he couldn't afford to pay Candido enough to justify him moving down there. And then he met Tammy, and then I was like, okay, maybe if I pay Tammy too, it makes sense to bring you both in. And that's how Candido and Tammy get in. But I'm not sure what the fuck the point of this as a main event was. And I mean, as we went through the show, I'm not sure what could have been the main event. Maybe put the Tracy Smothers squash match here and end the show with Tracy accepting the challenge for the chain match. Um, but this was an expiration of time match that wasn't an expiration of time match. Um, Crash does a press slam to Miguel, and we get a long shot of an ugly kid with a mullet at ringside, which, as we've mentioned, is what happens when something gets fucked up in the ring. Crash misses him.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. In case you're ever curious why we ever get long shots of the crowd, it's because something got fucked up and we're covering it up.
wow.
Crash misses a moonsault. Miguel does a handstand flippy splash out of the ring, which was
A
kind of neat.
Sasuke special here at an elementary school gym in East Tennessee. We got a Sasuke special here in 1993.
Maybe I don't know how to explain this because I watched it and I'm like, they looked very big compared to everybody else. I don't know exactly
Yeah.
how to explain it because they got big people. Primetime Brian Lee's big and Night Stalker's big, but it's like they were both big and it
Yeah, well,
really stood out.
Bill, yeah, Bill DeMott's a pretty thick dude, and I guess Miguel Perez is a full-size grown man. But like they worked really hard, and the crowd was polite about it. And then the announcers were just talking about whatever. And then Kevin Sullivan and the Night Stalker hit the ring, and there was a DQ, and it was disappointing.
Now, they cut away really fast, and I think it's because Miguel and Crash were getting in a lot of offense. Like, more than they really should be getting in on Kevin Sullivan and the Night Stalker. Like,
Yeah.
at least in the sense of in Smoky Mountain. Like, okay, if this was WWC where they're from, yeah, sure, they should be getting in a lot. But Sullivan is a top heel, and Night Stalker is his minion. They should not be going 50-50 with Miguel Perez and Crash the Terminator.
No, they should not. They should be killing everybody.
Now, did you have anything to note about the Quality Inn East in Knoxville, which,
Uh,
was
Not yet. I thought about it, but it's only the first week, so I haven't developed the affinity for it yet to actually look it up. So maybe by week 3 I will have developed a sense of Stockholm syndrome for the Quality Inn in Knoxville.
See, I hope you remember to look it up by week 3 because I want to know if the IHOP ever got put in there and if it's still there. Because they announced that coming soon to the Quality Inn East is the
Oh
International
man.
House of Pancakes.
Tell you though, that's what you want when you're traveling though, and
I,
you just stop at like a hotel in the middle of nowhere. That's what you want. You want a decent hotel and then a breakfast place that's in like the same parking lot.
oh yeah, like no doubt. Like hell, if I had a hotel that had IHOP connected to it, I fucking make sure to go there.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I'm going to attempt to play this, and even if it doesn't play correctly, I'm going to play it out in hopes that it airs. And if not, I'm going to try to trim it and throw it up on my YouTube page. This is a famous promo with stretching, but I want to remind you that I've mentioned because we do the what else has happened this week in wrestling segment, and a few weeks ago was the suicide death of Kerry Von Erich, who thankfully is the last truly tragic Von Erich death. I mean, yeah, Fritz died, but I mean, Fritz was an older gentleman. Like you don't cry so much when older people die. And you do, but you
Yeah.
know what I mean. So
Yeah.
Carrie's dead, David's dead, Mike's dead, Chris is dead. Most of them are dead by suicide. And Carrie just happened. With that in mind, we're going to go to a show closing promo with, I say the stud stable, but I'm going to go to a show closing promo with Robert Fuller because the stud stable's there, but yeah,
Hey, fans, with us right now, the
it's
stud
working.
stable. What about the Bluegrass Brawl?
Hey,
Hey.
fellas, let me tell you something. Stay out of my face and hold the microphone up high, because Stud's gonna tell you, I got 15 women running around on me, IRS up my rear end, son. I got all kinds of problems, but I'm gonna guarantee you, son, I ain't gonna do the Von Erich thing. You know what I'm talking? No, I'm not, because I found out now that we got the match we've been waiting on. This is the one that puts everything in order. Jim Cornette and Heavenly Bodies, you're gonna be out of it, boys. And then I seen you jerk the sheet on the hot dog, the one-legged hot dog. Dutch, hold his head. Jimmy, get hold of his legs. I'll snap that throat on you. And son, I guarantee you, you're going straight to the hospital. Your career is over in sight.
All right, fans, next week we'll have more action.
All right. So there is a lot to love about a Robert Fuller promo, and I've noted now for months that Bob Caudle is always holding the microphone at people's crotch level. And so I marked out when the first thing he does is tell the little feller to hold the mic up because he wasn't going to bend over at a 90-degree angle here. Um, and then,
So so Robert Fuller was contemplating suicide, but then he realized that he was going to get to wrestle Arn Anderson and found his will to live.
he, he's got problems with women, he's got problems with the IRS, but he ain't going to do the Von Erich thing. And listening to the promo, if you watch it, he literally holds his fingers up into his head with the air gun motion. And I don't know how well it picks up, but Jimmy Golden says, "Oh no, don't do that."
Oh.
And Dutch is just kind of staring off at the camera. He has no idea what the hell is going on. And Caudle
It,
especially. This is one of those promos where that trip from North Carolina to these TV tapings was especially long this week.
Robert Fuller is fucking unhinged, and I appreciate that about him.
Oh God, it's like I shouldn't laugh because I mean I say this as somebody who had their own mental health issues. Suicide is not funny. It's not a joking matter, but there's just something about Robert Fuller making that announcement
Yeah.
that's just
And and here's the thing, and you can say suicide's not funny, but and this is the weird thing to say but about, but as someone who has been similarly afflicted, suicide is funny to people who have actually experienced suicidality because that's the way you live with it.
Pretty much. And I mean, I get I'm a little weird. I think anything can be funny, and I'll be the first to make jokes about it. Like how shortly after my little moment, which by the way, anniversary is coming up next week, but shortly after that, I had to go get blood drawn, and I'm fat, so it is hard to get a vein in my arm. So I just have them take blood out of my hand. And this one day, they could not find a vein in my hand to save their lives. So they took it out of my wrist.
Ah,
And I made the joke after they took the needle out. It's like, I don't know if you want to really be cutting a suicidal person's wrist here. They did not think that was as funny as I did.
across the street for attention, down the road for results.
Oh, lordy. So that's it for Mid South. 59 episodes down, 141 to go. And
I gotta I gotta think of something better to say. I can't end on a slit wrist joke.
if it helps, we still have a couple of minutes because I'm going to tell you what else is happening this week in wrestling.
Oh, that's a relief. Yeah, tell us.
Because I can tell you March 13th, 1993 until I'm blue in the face. But, telling you what else has happened. By the way, and we're going from one thing that's not funny to another thing that's not funny here because we've mentioned there are three major wrestling deaths in this period. We had Andre about 6 weeks ago. We had Kerry about 3 weeks ago. And now we have the third. Dino Bravo was found dead of a
Oh,
gang-style murder in his house. No sign of a struggle, which indicated Dino knew the man who killed him. The police said that 17 shells were found, and he got shot twice in the head and at least 5 other times. And it's allegedly due to Dino being involved in the drug trade and the cigarette trade in Montreal and double crossing his business partners. business partners. And you don't double cross people like that. And
it keeps coming up, and it's the universe telling us that we need to do a series on Dark Side of the Ring.
oh, definitely. I don't know what would happen next in the timeline. I have to go through all of the Dark Side episodes because I'm pretty sure that something happened between now and Herb Abrams dying. The Herb Abrams
So,
was simultaneous.
something will come up on next week's show.
Oh yeah, well, like WrestleMania is coming up too, and I know that wasn't on Dark Side of the
Uh,
Ring, but I mean,
it
uh,
should be
I,
the
uh,
injustice.
could you really get an hour out of it though? Like just talking about Hogan doing whatever he did to get himself the world title in the main event.
Do you think that Brett could do an hour just about how much he hates Goldberg?
Oh, definitely. And
That would be that'd be fantastic.
and I don't want to say I don't blame Brett at all because unfortunately accidents fucking happen. But it's like, yeah, it's like that is a shitty way to end your career because Goldberg booted you in the head. And the funny thing is, it's like Brett, in retrospect, is angrier at Goldberg than he had been at other times because he did. I think it might have been the original WWE documentary he did in '05 or '06, and he said that Goldberg, it was sad that he got injured by such a nice man like Goldberg, and it seemed to have nothing but good things to say about him. But much like how Eric Bischoff has gone crazy, Brett has, I don't say gone crazy, but he's lost it a little bit.
Brett's Brett is pretty proud of being Brett.
And he has every right to be proud of it. And I always say that, and I mentioned this on Twitter because Bischoff is just being Bischoff lately. I honestly believe that his WWE run was a big cause of of the reason why he acts the way he does, when talking about the WCW days, because he did accomplish a lot. Like we'll talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, the whatever, but he did a lot and he accomplished a lot of good stuff during his run in WCW. And then he goes to WWE for 3 years or 4 years, however long he was really there, and it gets torn down. He gets minimalized. He gets told that it didn't really happen, that it was all Ted Turner and nothing to do with him. And yeah, if you get your big success trivialized, I'd be, for 4 or 5 years, I'd be fucking pissed at it too. And
You know,
so, mhm.
go ahead and finish.
I was gonna say I could always understand why he kind of ended up like this because it feels like he has to defend his own legacy, even though part of his legacy is the bad stuff.
You're not going to believe this. I actually have another Hitler comparison to make.
Oh Jesus Christ!
Okay, this sounds so insane on the surface of it,
By the way,
but
I should note the Hitler reference was on the other show, but
oh,
check out yesterday's something else for our other Hitler reference.
yeah, okay. It's a comparison that I always make because Bischoff apologists always like to bring up, the 83 weeks that he was very successful. And, Nitro was, they were selling out fucking stadiums all over the country and they were doing big ratings. People always want to talk about that stuff. They never want to talk about the fact that Bischoff was always also in charge, until and past the point the bottom fell out of the business, and that he continuously has not been associated with anything successful that he had a creative role in over 25 years. But where the Hitler comparison comes in is that because I used to like to argue with Nazis on the internet a lot, don't really do that much anymore. But Hitler apologists, and yes, Adolf Hitler has apologists, they always want to point out that Hitler was a quite successful chancellor of Germany from 1933 to about 1941, probably to the point that he made the decision to invade the Soviet Union. So whenever someone makes the point that Hitler was a great chancellor, I always find a couple of pictures of bombed out Berlin at the end of World War II and go that, yeah, this is what Germany looked like at the end of Hitler's chancellorship. So the point that I'm trying to get at here in a roundabout way is that what Eric Bischoff did to WCW is exactly what Hitler did to Germany, and that's going to be the startling revelation in the new Vice series, Who Killed WCW? It was Hitler.
Now we record this show on Monday, and the Who Killed WCW show I think comes out Tuesdays, and this comes out Thursday. So by that point, by the point you're listening to this, you've probably already watched the Who Kills WCW segment. I don't know when he's going to say this. It's either going to be this week or next week, but at some point Bischoff is going to point out that in August of 1998 he gets called into a meeting. This is when the WWF had started taking over, but it was hotly contested still. But he got called into a meeting at Turner Broadcasting where a whole bunch of people in suits told him that he needed to not do adult content and he needed to be more family friendly. And that's when he threw in the towel and just stopped giving a fuck. And that is such a fucking cop out. Like, yeah, we've all had bosses that have told us to do stupid shit that we didn't agree with, and you're fucking pissed when it happens. But you're fucking pissed for a day or two, and then if you really care about the fucking job, you figure out a way around it, or you figure out how to work within these constraints, and you just go on with your fucking life. But Bischoff has used this meeting in August of 1998 as to why the show fucking blew for almost all in 98, almost all in 99 until he got fired, he got demoted or reassigned or whatever you want to call it in September of 99. But it's like, it's such a fucking cop out because, like, yeah, fine. They didn't want you to do adult, stuff because the WWF was getting all that backlash at that point for, being Jerry Springer wrestling. So it's like, yeah, like there is a happy medium between, the G-rated WWF of 1992 and the fucking Attitude Era. And we're sorry.
Can we name this episode How Hitler Killed WCW?
I, we don't usually have titles for the Smoky Mountain show. I
It's an
can
oversight.
I'll see what I can do here. There are going to be so many confused people here, and hopefully the
Uh,
confusion leads to people listening here because apparently me begging people to listen last week
if
did not work.
if you have listened this far, I apologize. See, we just last week everything just kind of clicked, and I realized the key to good podcast audio is for me to just say whatever absurd bullshit pops into my brain, and that's how you get Hitler Killed WCW.
And last week he may have been under he may have been taking illicit, illegal in some states substances.
I may be in Iran.
Maybe. I may be in Saudi Arabia, covered head to toe in my
Uh,
tight ass pleather outfit, which is okay to wear.
I wouldn't recommend that.
But,
Maybe you
but
can borrow Nia Jax's wrestling gear.
there we go. By the way, there's other stuff that happened this week in wrestling, and not just Hitler killing WCW. Sting won the WCW title from Vader in London in a house show. Spoiler alert: it doesn't last long. And Jim Ross was backstage at a WWF TV taping on March 9th, and it is expected that he will debut, point to the sign, at WrestleMania.
I actually think I have handhelds of yeah, I do. The London house show and the Dublin house show when they uh did the Sting and Vader quick title switches.
And the funny thing is, I had no idea and they may have mentioned it on WCW TV, but we didn't have TBS. So the only WCW show we ever got growing up until Nitro started was Worldwide. And so they may have mentioned it on Worldwide, but I didn't know that title change ever happened until reading the PWI year in review at the end of the year. And it listed the title change.
One of the first wrestling magazines that I ever got was WCW magazine, like roundabout January 2000, and they had an issue that had the whole history of the WCW world title in it, and that was like the first time I had ever seen a title history. It started my weird obsession with title histories and record keeping.
I like even long after like I was officially a smart mark and could discover the internet, I would get the PWI Almanac every year and I would
Oh,
obsessively read the title changes.
oh my God, it was so good. I still have like a couple of those, I think, on my bookshelf.
I'm it's funny like when we talk about how, 98 was like the peak of wrestling and how popular it was. It's always funny when you go and you see like people selling old PWIs on eBay or whatever. It's always the 1998 run. Like everybody had all the 1998 issues of PWI, like including the almanac. Everybody had the 1998 PWI almanac. I had it. Everyone on eBay has it. It was great, and it's like I remember they used to have like this lengthy history of wrestling thing in there that unfortunately they didn't have in future issues or future editions of the almanac. Um, and honestly, I'm 39 years old, and right now, if PWI reached out to me and wanted me to write an article for them, I would fucking backflip and call it the greatest moment of my professional career.
I would read those almanacs until like they fell apart.
I, Mick Foley's first book, Have a Nice Day. I got it in paperback, and I read it so much those things fell apart.
Okay, I actually have like from the original, like the first hardcover printing. I think if it wasn't the first printing, it was the second. I bought it in like when it came out. I
Mhm.
read it so many times as a teenager that like it was coming apart, and I actually that is the one that I had Mick Foley sign when I went to one of his comedy shows about 10 years ago.
He called me a son of a bitch at the one I went to.
Oh well, you should have talked to him about wrestling Jumbo Tsuruta. That's what I did.
I did not ask him about that. What happened was, and I think I've mentioned this on the show before. I live in Massachusetts now, but I grew up in Northeast Pennsylvania. And in Northeast Pennsylvania, until the arena in Wilkes-Barre got built, the only arena that ever held Major League Wrestling, quote unquote, was a small ass tiny building called the Catholic Youth Center in Scranton, Pennsylvania. It held like 1,000 people, and they got kicked out of there during the Attitude Era.
Oh, that one.
Yeah. And so Mick started telling the story about how they were at the Catholic Youth Center in Scranton, and I wooed because, I'm that person. And he asked me if I was from Scranton, and I said, no, I'm from Hazleton, which was about 40 miles south of Scranton. And he jokingly calls me a son of a bitch. And, I laughed. Everybody laughed. It wasn't anything serious. But yeah. But
Yeah.
yeah, it turns out
I,
Mick Foley got them banned unintentionally because the people in charge of the Catholic Youth Center went to whoever's in charge and said they don't want anyone swearing, they don't want anyone saying "suck it" or whatever. And so whoever was the agent in charge went around to everybody except Mick Foley to tell him this. And so when they came out for their match, Billy Gunn held the microphone to the ceiling for the crowd to yell "suck it." And Mick Foley grabs the microphone and is like, "I don't want to suck it. Please don't make me suck it." And he asked later, they're like, "You were the one person we didn't think we needed to tell not to curse."
Funny. I apparently have like a brain defect that anytime I meet a legendary wrestler, my go-to is to ask him about wrestling Jumbo Tsuruta because I did the same thing when I met Terry Funk.
I, before you started telling that story, I was gonna say as a smartass, I'm like, "Oh, you ask everybody what it's like wrestling Jumbo Tsuruta," and sure enough,
Except when I met Cliff Compton, Domino, I did not ask him what it was like to wrestle Jumbo Tsuruta. I asked him what it was like to wrestle Power Uti.
what did he say?
He said it was shitty.
Really, I'm shocked that wrestling Power
If
Uti.
you, if you go into the archives of Colt Cabana's Art of Wrestling podcast, there's one called Domino parentheses Nigeria, where they tell the whole harrowing tale of an ill-advised trip that Cliff Compton and Luke Gallows and some other wrestlers took to Nigeria.
I gotta tell you, has anybody got a story about going to Nigeria to wrestle that isn't a shitty story? Because I mean,
Uh, didn't Power Uti like wasn't he accused of like killing his wife a couple of years ago?
I have no idea. I,
Oh, I gotta Wikipedia this. I feel like
I
you remember when there was that like fake Power Uti Twitter account a few years
oh
ago?
my god, that was a fake. I was just about to mention the Power Uti Twitter. I never knew that was a fake.
I, it had to have been, right?
I I just took it, you know, as real.
You're not gonna believe this. Power
Uh,
Uti doesn't have a Wikipedia article.
What?
I am appalled.
That that that's like Mike Vachon not having a cage match profile.
Okay, October 2017, Power Uti faces trial for allegedly killing wife, locking up corpse to decompose. Jesus. This is 2017. Was there any resolution to this?
Let's see. Who knows? This trial may still be going on. Uh, Apparently, there's somebody named Power Mike in wrestling who is not Power Uti.
Definitely not. There is only one Power Uti.
It is possible that this case is still going on because there's no, like, every story is about how he's been arrested and he was granted bail. Um, how E. coli got the power to cause urinary tract infections. That's probably nothing to do with Power Uti.
I'm sure the wheels of justice there in Nigeria are still underway.
So, it's possible it's that Power Uti will get it will be put in jail around the time that what's his name gets put in jail for killing Brody.
Yeah, isn't he dead now?
Possibly Power
I
Uti or
think
the guy
he
that killed Brody.
No, the Jose Gonzalez, the guy that killed Bruiser Brody.
I'm gonna say I don't know if Uti is dead because I I just
They
love
just
like the like Power Uti is like you know Mick Foley may have been full of shit, but it's like the story of like they got pulled over, driving to a match in Nigeria, and Power Uti from the back seat screamed at the police to make them let him go. And by the way, Jose
yeah,
Gonzalez is still alive.
that's unfortunate. Sorry to hear that.
We are sorry
You
to
want to
report
hear?
that Jose Gonzalez is still with us.
Yeah, in happier news, the following trios match has just been announced for Dynamite this week. It is
Like the feud.
Mark Briscoe, Kyle O'Reilly, and Orange Cassidy against Kyle Fletcher, Roderick Strong, and Konosuke Takeshita.
That match sure was great. That match had happened yesterday.
I bet because I already saw the match. I just know I'm willing to stake money that Kyle Fletcher got pinned.
I I, I loved Orange Cassidy's lightly tapping leg kicks. Those were great.
He's going to wrestle Zack Sabre Jr. at Forbidden Door. That's going to be something.
Yes, yes, he is. Um, Also, does Roderick Strong still walk out and scream someone's first name?
No, he still does it in promos sometimes though.
The funniest one that he did, in my opinion, was after we established the Adam. Was one time he walked out and yelled Samoa Joe.
Roderick Strong is fantastic.
Yes, he is, and it's funny because it's like for years, like he had the reputation of like having no charisma, no real mic skills, and just like being a very good wrestler. And I mean, to be honest, like especially if you watch the original Ring of Honor run, that's pretty much all he was. But he's so much more than that.
Yeah, I realized the other day that I've been watching Roddy wrestle for like 20 years and he's been excellent just the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
I was watching the Noah show, the one that I raved about on the Mid South podcast, and it had Starboy Charlie like he took a really crazy backbreaker from Daga, and I'm like, I want to see Starboy Charlie wrestle Roderick Strong because he takes backbreakers so well.
Interesting. Starboy Charlie.
Did anything else happen in wrestling history in 1993?
It didn't. Uh, yeah, we finished that part up about 20 minutes ago. Then we started talking about Power Uti and wrestling Jumbo Tsuruta and the PWI Almanac. And I think now Hitler killing WCW was in between. It was it was before Sting won the WCW title, but after Dino Bravo got murdered. So yeah, by the way, in the last 20-ish minutes of this show, Robert Fuller said he's not gonna do the Von Erich thing. Dino Bravo got murdered. Uh Hitler killed WCW, and Jose Gonzalez is sadly still alive.
See, here's the thing. If I'm going to do this podcast, for me to be the most me that I can be, that means it's probably going to be fucking stupid.
I love it. Like nobody may ever listen to this, and the people who do may turn it off and never listen to us again. But this is some fun ass shit. I must tell you that.
It entertains me, and that's what's most important.
As long as it entertains us. I remember when I used to do a podcast with my brother. Like, it seemed to be the only time every week we'd ever talk to each other. So it's like after the 1 hour mark, we'd be done talking about wrestling, and we tell people just turn the show off because we're just gonna bullshit now for like 20 minutes because we never talk otherwise. And sure enough, that's what the shows usually came out as. And we're spreading out the bullshit a bit because we talked about Tim Horner singing "Shameless" and David Duke as your professor's roommate and Seether. Uh,
Hey, you know what else is really good? It's kind of hard to find, but you can't find it on YouTube. I remember when it came out, I was in college and she was actually still alive. They did on some show they did a cover of Rehab by Amy Winehouse.
Interesting.
It's a really cool cover.
Nice. And this was when Amy
Poor
Winehouse was still alive.
poor Amy Winehouse. She really should have gone to rehab.
I mean, allegedly, and to be honest, I mean, I have my own issues with people who make excuses for people who have drug addiction. But it's like allegedly she was fairly clean when she died, like clean-ish anyway. My issues, and I got into a fight with somebody on Facebook once upon a time when I did these kind of things. Because nowadays I just block people or just ignore them. It's like I no one forces you to start taking drugs. And peer pressure sucks. Peer pressure is a fucking bitch. But as I've told people, I went to the same college parties everybody else did. And it became the well known running joke that when they pulled out the hard drugs to tell me to go home because everyone knew I wasn't comfortable being there around it. And if I'm not there, that's more drugs for everybody else to have. Plus, the next day we were all still friends and we all moved on with our lives. And that's why I was like, no one, this isn't a TV show. No one held you down and forced drugs into you. And it's your choice. Like, hey, addiction is a dick. Addiction is a total fucking bitch. And I don't wish it on anybody. And, I'm so happy for anybody who's able to fight it and beat it. But no one forced you to do it in the first place, is my point.
At a certain point, I get what you're saying. At a certain point, they took a they made a choice that led them down this road. But I don't know. As someone who has lived with very severe depression, like I try not to judge people for what they have to do to cope, even if when you're just trying to stay like to where it's safe to be alive in your own head, you're not
Mm-hmm.
always making the smartest choices.
The funny thing to kind of start wrapping this up. Speaking of depression, speaking of drugs, it's like I used to be very vocally anti-marijuana. I was that person. And at some point
Nerd.
yeah, at some point I stopped being as vocal. But when I got depressed and went through that fun little year of my life, I stopped giving a fuck. Like, you do you. If you want to do this, that's on you. Um, I'd be lying if I didn't say I've gotten high a couple times. It was an interesting experience. I'm not somebody who gets high a lot. I think I haven't in over a year, mostly because me and my dealer aren't friends anymore. And I should stop using that running joke since him and I don't get along anymore. But yeah, my source for free edibles and I no longer talk, so you know it makes it easy to not take them anymore. But yeah, it's like honestly, and I don't recommend, and I'm sure Trey doesn't recommend getting depressed. However, it really makes
Mm.
you stop caring what everybody else is doing.
My advice to everyone is don't follow your dreams because yeah, it's cool when you follow your dreams and you succeed, but when you follow your dreams and fail, it just kind of makes everything suck even more.
And on that uber positive note, we're gonna start to wrap this up here after God knows how long the show has lasted. You know,
Longer than it took for Hitler to kill WCW.
One day, it's gonna be like 10 years from now, because these shows are just going to be sitting up on, Spotify and YouTube forever and ever and ever. One day, 10 years from now, you and I are going to be super famous. We're going to be like, for some reason, we're going to be uber popular and just super awesome people. And it's somebody's going to listen to an old podcast and hear us talk about how Hitler killed WCW, and it's going to come back to bite us in the ass.
You're gonna run for political office again, and you're gonna lose because of me, because of something I said like now.
This might explain why I lost last year. Somehow the electorate knew that I was going to do this podcast with you where we talked about Hitler killing WCW.
I had previously made the Eric Bischoff Hitler comparison, but I had not at that point made the link that Hitler killed WCW.
That's just fucking tremendous. By the way, since we kind of talked about, the AEW haters, like, not all wrestling is supposed to be exactly the fucking same. Like,
No, it's not. And
like I don't know where it got in everyone's head that all wrestling has to be exactly the same. It is
not.
okay for you to not like something, even if it is critically acclaimed. You don't have to like it. No one's forcing you to. And like, we watch Mid South, and we watch World Class, and we watch Smoky Mountain Wrestling. All three arguably are really good shows. These three shows are nothing like each other. And especially you can note the comparison between Mid South and World Class, because they're going on at the exact same time, one state away from each other, and those two fucking shows are so insanely different, it's not even funny.
Yeah, so I'm always talking about like, watching this, or I'm watching WCW, or I'm watching Raw. I also typically in a week watch AEW, New Japan, Noah, watching a fair amount of WWE TV lately. Try to watch a few of the MLW big shows here and there. I have always been a person who wanted to see as much different wrestling as possible.
Yep. And it's good to be different. Like, yeah, sometimes there's bad different, but it's not good if everybody is exactly the same. That's when wrestling gets boring, even if it is technically well performed. That's like, I'm not going to apologize if I mark out for, an Orange Cassidy match where, he's doing his slacker gimmick. It can be fun. I'm not going to apologize at the same time for liking the Bloodline storyline, or, liking whatever the exact opposite of it is. It's like, you're going to like whatever you're going to fucking like, and it's good that shit's different. Like, I'm sorry that I have to break the news to people here, but it's good that shit is different. And, I was talking the other day on Twitter about Russo not understanding that different wrestling fans want different things when he was booking WCW. The same thing could be applied when, when Crockett bought Mid South, because Dusty was booking UWF shows, but he wasn't booking UWF shows for UWF fans. He was booking essentially a Jim Crockett promotion show under the UWF banner, and that's not what those fans wanted.
Yeah, one of many, many bad decisions that Crockett made.
And it's hilarious, and we'll get to this in 5 years when we get to the end of Mid South. But it's like, and this one's on me for going on this tangent. But you know, like, Crockett bought it allegedly to keep, because JR convinced him that Vince was going to buy up all the TV stations and whatnot. It's like, I don't like I again, maybe it's because, child of cable television, I don't truly appreciate how important syndicated TV is. But like, it feels like, especially looking back, like, why would they have needed all those extra TV stations? Like Crockett had plenty of his own, and they did not need to suddenly add another, 50 TV stations to put his same TV show on across the country. it seemed like a waste of money. And at the end of the day, like, what would have happened if, Crockett would have called his bluff? Maybe Vince would have bought the UWF, but what the hell would he have done with it? Like, he may have taken, like, a handful of wrestlers. Maybe Sting would never have gone to WCW. Maybe Sting would have been a WWF flameout along with Tom McGee at the time. But, at the end of the day, Crockett was played by Jim Ross, and you know, they had no chance, even if Dusty would have booked it perfectly. Let's be perfectly honest here.
We could do a whole podcast just on mistakes that Crockett made from like 1985 to 88.
And I feel like we're setting up all these bonus episodes of this podcast here. Or we're just going to have like a 3-hour episode of something else someday. Or it's like, talk about Mid-South for 10 minutes, talk about World Class for 10 minutes. Now let's talk about everything else.
Pro wrestling is not a genre, it's a medium. It can be anything. Here's the thing. There's like a lot of things that wrestling can be that I love, and there's shit that wrestling is that other people love that I fucking hate. And you know what? I don't waste my time hate watching shit. I watch stuff that has some kind of entertainment or enjoyment value to me. And it's okay. Like, if you like, really goofy fucking comedy wrestling or real gory deathmatch wrestling, like, neither one of those is my thing, but I'm really happy that it exists for you. And I think that if you're a wrestling fan, if you're a fan, I'm not like going to be a fan of a promotion or like a stand for any wrestlers. I am a fan of the medium of professional wrestling. And I think that we should all appreciate that whatever anybody wants out of wrestling, there is that version of wrestling that exists for them.
It's, I mentioned this, last year, and I'm sure I've mentioned it more than just this, but when they did the All In show and it did 80,000 people, and yet all these people whining about the show online, and it's the people who would whine about it no matter what. Like, they could have done, Bryan Danielson in the greatest technical mat classic of all time, and these people would have still bitched about the show. And my point was, no one forced you to buy the show on pay-per-view. No one forced you to buy a fucking ticket to the show, travel to the show, go to the show. No one forced you to sit and watch the show. So fuck off. Like, if like you're literally spending money, not even money. Like, let's say you're torrenting the shit out of everything and you're pirating everything. Fine. You're still spending hours of your fucking life, of your free time, bitching about, hate watching something just so you can bitch about it. The fucking people who, again, I love Jim Cornette. I am a proud member of the Cult of Cornette. The fucking people who will go to the AEW shows wearing their Jim Cornette t-shirt just so they can be like, oh, look at me protesting the AEW show, the show that I spent $100 to sit in the fucking front row of in my Jim Cornette shirt, just so I can say that I protested it. Yes, Tony Khan's not going to spend your $100 because you were wearing a Jim Cornette shirt and you were there at a protest. He's got that money set aside.
You know what the high watermark was for me of Cornette's genius?
That this really is a cult and these people don't fucking realize it?
That too, but burger towels. He turned me on to keeping a burger towel in my car, and I actually do have the Cult of Cornette burger towel.
The actual burger towel?
Yeah.
I think the only thing I ever bought off his website was the Midnight Express 25th anniversary scrapbook.
I have that. I actually my wife got me the Mid-Atlantic film set for Christmas one year.
Nice. Nice. And I'll be honest, and I say this as somebody who is now at 90 minutes in this show. It's like, Yeah, I don't listen to it most of the time, not necessarily just because I roll my eyes at, his takes on modern wrestling sometimes. It's more because I can't fucking sit and listen to a 3-hour wrestling podcast. And I say that as somebody who's essentially just done a 3-hour wrestling podcast that she's going to split into two. But I, I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
there's not enough to talk about in this world that you can go 3 hours.
Yeah. I don't like. I don't have any interest in hearing anything that he has to say about modern wrestling because it's just. Okay, here's the thing, and it's one of those things that I think requires a more nuanced view than the average person is capable of in our time of great socio-political polarization.
Mhm.
But here's the thing with Cornette. He needed AEW to fail to validate his worldview. And just the longer that it kept not failing, like the more he started to kind of lose his grip on reality. So it's like the whatever he has to say about modern wrestling, have no interest in. But like just going on YouTube and listening to him talk about like classic wrestling or even like, the stuff that he was involved in, like, all the stuff with the deep dives in the Smoky Mountain and the months with Crockett and the Great American Bash tours and, the angle with Watson Mid-South that we're going to get to in about a year. It's like, or if it's just talking about wrestling history, it's amazing to listen to. And
Yeah.
I don't know. If I'm ever amazing at something, and instead of focusing on that, I'm like doing something else that's going to fuck up my legacy and my reputation. Please, give me some perspective.
I am still convinced, and I was convinced that saying this was going to lose me my Observer Hall of Fame ballot, but apparently it didn't. Um, I'm still convinced that Cornette is paid as a paid consultant for the Khan family, not AEW, because taking the check from AEW would, make it hypocritical. That he's getting paid from Shad Khan to be a consultant to watch a show because literally, if you hate something as much as he, claims to hate 90% of AEW, why the fuck does he watch every single fucking show? Literally, like, I don't know of anybody who's watched more AEW than Jim Cornette. He buys all the pay-per-views. He doesn't, get a free stream somewhere, and that he could if he wanted to. He
I don't
pays,
think he knows how.
well, I'm sure his wife knows, but it's like
Yeah.
he pays $50 to $60 for every pay-per-view. He watched those original streaming shows that aired on BR Live before Dynamite started. He watched those. He watches every Dynamite. He watches most collisions. He used to watch Rampage all the time. It's like you do not spend that much time of your life if you hate something that much for no reason. Because at the end of the day, Trey, if he didn't review Dynamite, would you have told your wife not to buy you the Mid Atlantic DVDs for Christmas?
I think that might actually predate the existence of Dynamite.
Well, let's pretend it was nowadays. You wouldn't make your wife return them because
No,
he stopped reviewing Dynamite. I wouldn't
no.
return the Midnight Express book because he's not talking about Collision. It's like there is so much shit he can watch. Because think about how much wrestling he has never talked about. He he never watched his Impact. He didn't watch Ring of Honor before or after the buyout. He didn't watch New Japan when dozens of people told him that he would like New Japan. Even with Omega and the Bucks. You know, he doesn't watch anything except for WWE, which he likes, and AEW, which he eviscerates. Why? Like, I I'm like, in my opinion, he has to be getting some sort of financial incentive because he every so often he'll bring up the NDA that he signed with Tony Khan because before AEW was a thing, Tony Khan met with him and wanted him to be part of AEW, made him sign an NDA. And he contests that there is something in that NDA that he has not disclosed, because he's talked about pretty much everything else in it. And what else could possibly be in this NDA that he, can't talk about or won't talk about at this point? And that would be it. That he's getting paid to watch and review these shows and give Khan feedback. And it makes sense, in my opinion.
It's a great conspiracy.
Mm-hmm. All right. So at this point, if we haven't gone 90 minutes, we've sure as hell gone it now, because I've gotten it over the there. So I don't know about you, but I say let's finish things up.
But this has been such a good time.
I know, but we got to leave people wanting more. And to be honest, I'm not sure if we've done that or not, but we should probably call it quits now while we're still ahead.
Knowing that I have Kevin Sullivan and Wayne Kennemer to look to next week, that's gonna keep me going.
While it's still Monday on your end of the world, because we've now crossed into Tuesday on my end, we're gonna wrap things up. And so I want to thank everybody for listening. I hope you all enjoyed it. Hope you all had fun. Let people know about this show if you enjoyed it. If you thought it was hilariously awful, let people know that too. Because hey, I'll take some views even if it's hate watching right now. But thank you all for listening, and we'll talk to you again in 7 days.
Bye.